Hey, Laura, I am so excited to have you on. And I have to tell you that I have listened to your podcast before and I love it. You are no BS, no fluff. And that's exactly the type of person that I could be BFFs with for like ever. So anyhow, welcome today. I'm so grateful that you're here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So you're welcome. You're welcome. I want to know because you owned a branding studio initially, and then you transitioned into being a speaker, a coach, an author. How did you get to where you are right now? How did that transition happen?
Yeah, that's an interesting little journey I've been on.
Yes, it has, and I want to know how and why.
Yeah, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. So I've been an entrepreneur for 16 years. So I started my business when I was 6.5 months pregnant. I quit my full-time job. I was a graphic designer for the phone book. So that tells you everything you need to know. And I knew that that's not what I wanted. So I started my design business from my couch. And I built and grew that business for 16 years. At one point I had 5 full-time team members on staff. We had dozens of clients. And at some point, I don't really remember when, but I remember we worked a lot with entrepreneurs building small business brands. And I remember starting to have conversations with these business owners about what made them excited and what kept them up at night. And, it almost became um, this therapeutic type of place where people could come and just like spill out what they were thinking. And I
Oh,
found
I
that
love it.
so fascinating, right? There was something about that I was like, ooh, I want to talk about this more. So I launched something at the time called the Green Couch Project. So I had, still have, a chartreuse couch, which is the same color as your shirt today, by the way. And so serendipity there. And I started to interview entrepreneurs because I wanted to talk about all the things that I was thinking and feeling. And I thought, well, if I'm thinking and feeling this, maybe just maybe there's somebody else that does as well. And so as I was having these conversations and putting these interviews up, people were like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize someone else felt like that. Oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. Oh my gosh, I thought something was wrong with me. And just all these conversations started to really, really like become empowering. And we were doing it on a regular basis, but I found that, putting that whole thing on, it was a production and a half, right? Which came with, a pretty decent cost. And I thought, okay, well, how can I do more of this, but lower my costs? I'll figure out how to launch a podcast. So I bought a $25 headset off of Amazon and I opened GarageBand and Zoom and I figured out how to record. And I launched the Gutsy podcast 5 years ago. And again, through that, I've always just been really good about leaning into the things that make me feel like curious and excited and like, oh, this is interesting to me. Let me see what might be behind this door. And so through the podcast, I'm connecting with more people and I realized that my passion for coaching, teaching, speaking, using my voice to make an impact, it started to get much stronger than my passion for growing the branding agency. And just last year, like I'm not even a month past closing in this moment. I just recently sold my branding agency, which that was 16 and a half years old. And I am Laura Ora full time now. Like it is me.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I wish we had champagne right now to celebrate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Not an easy decision to make because, when you think about if you've done something for a really long time, or maybe you've even
Yeah.
just done something for a little bit of time, but you've invested time, money, energy. For me, I had a reputation in the industry. It's everything that I've ever known. It's what I went to college for, right? Like there's all these reasons why I probably shouldn't sell it. But my soul was like, Laura, it is time to really fully step into everything that you are. And so it's about making gutsy decisions and leading into the things that make you feel scared and figuring it out along the way and giving yourself permission to do the things that you feel called to do.
I love that. And I love that you are so gutsy because we have to live in our purpose. We have to listen to our gut, that little feeling, right? And a lot of times that gut feeling is pulling us out of our comfort zone and tugging at us. And we're like, nope, I'm okay right here because it's too scary to go over there. So I'm going to sit tight. But to find that courage to step out and say, you know what? It's time. I commend you. That's awesome. That's exciting. Super
Thank
exciting.
you.
So congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
how long did it take you to decide? Like, when did it start tugging at you
Mm.
before you said, all right, now's it?
If I'm really honest with myself, I think it presented itself in 2020 because
Really?
I had to make some really big, hard decisions about my team and our clients and our business as a whole. And then there was just this survival mode for about a year. And
Yeah.
I can remember in parts of that, I took on every role back in the company, right? It was just me, in my basement, drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning. Not proud of that, but I mean, that's the reality, right? And I remember thinking in those moments, I'm like, I'm doing a lot of things right now that I don't really enjoy anymore. At that point, it was a must, right? Like, I have to do this. This is our survival means right now. But I can remember just getting a little bit of like a nod, like, there might be something here that this, I have a feeling, is going to grow in some form or fashion. But let me just tuck that away right now because I can't deal with that shit, right? But
that's really exactly what goes
yes.
on.
But I truly believe, and I've experienced this more times than I could even count, that when something really truly is for you, that feeling will grow. Those thoughts will grow, that nudge will get louder, it'll turn into a bump, it'll turn into a shove. If you don't listen, it will punch you square in the face. And
So true.
between 2020 and 2021, that was just survival time, right? But then over the last couple of years, again, I had just restructured everything, and that nudge kept getting stronger and louder. And then it was last summer. I don't even remember how it all came together because it was such a big turning point. But I can remember sitting at my computer by myself, looking at everything. I'm trying to run the branding agency. I'm trying to grow Laura Aura and my brand, and that's not really working, so to speak. I'm trying to manage a building. We had purchased a commercial building at the time. Like, I was so divided, and I looked around at everything and I was like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, I can't master anything. And for me, I really love to be able to be in depth with something so that I can put all of me into it. And I called my husband and I'm like, you got to come here. I'm about to fucking lose it. and he came down to the building, and when I tell you that my soul cried, like, I let out a cry that I didn't even know existed in my body. And for the first time out loud, I said, I don't want all of this anymore. I don't want the branding agency anymore. And he was like,
wow.
okay, what do we do next? He's my number one supporter. Love the man to death. So, I don't even remember your original question. I'm sorry, but
no, this is great. This just
yeah,
this is really good.
It's really about like listening to those parts of you that are speaking. They're speaking for a reason.
Yeah.
Something is calling you to make a change for a reason. Something's calling you to step into something new, or try something, or evolve, or grow, or walk away from something. Those voices, those feelings, they don't lie.
They really don't. And it sounds like you were ignoring him for a while until they finally just punched you in the face. Like
oh yeah, I've been punched a handful of times. So much that actually, if I fast forward even just a few months, so that happened the summer of 23. Just a few months later, I started to get the nudge that maybe the commercial building wasn't supposed to be either. And then at that point, I'm like, what are you doing, Laura? People are going to think that you're batshit crazy. What are you like? You're giving up all this stuff. You have everything for the building is planned out, like everything on paper, perfection. We have we have renderings, we have floor plans, there's a business plan. I mean, it is to the nines. And now I'm like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And because I know about the whole nudging and punching of face situation, I was like, I'm calling the shots with this one.
Yeah.
We're selling the
That's
building.
what did your husband say? Did he's like I know you said he's your biggest supporter, but at this point, did he said
Yeah. Well,
like what the hell's going on with you?
I mean, I think probably maybe a little bit, but honestly, I pulled him aside and I was like, I know you're going to think that I'm nuts, but I think that we got to let go of the building. And we talked about it. We cried about it together because it was something that we were building together. We really evaluated how it was affecting our life. And what really came down to that decision was it required a lot of us being there or on or managing things. And our life in the season, we were looking for simplicity and fulfillment and embodiment and travel. And that wouldn't have allowed us to do most of that, not nearly as much as we wanted to. So, we had a good cry and we decided together. We called an agent, it listed, and we got an offer within 24 hours. I mean, wham, bam, thank you,
Wow.
ma'am. That's how it goes.
Wow. That's when you know that it's meant to be. When the
Yeah.
doors just open and you're like, yeah, this is it. So you have the ability to really get out of your head, right? And be in the moment and listen to all that. How do you do that?
How do I do that? That's a great question.
Well, you have a program, right? The Power Back
Yeah.
process. And is that teaches you, right? How to really
How to get
be
out
in
of the head.
alignment in the moment.
Yeah. It's funny because I think that when you develop processes like this, it's not just like, let me sit down and craft a process. I looked back at all the different, like, how am I making these decisions? How am I moving forward? And are there any similarities in the steps that I took? And I started to really document it, and I found that my process actually ended up being an acronym, which is AURA, pun fully
Is that where your
intended.
name comes from?
Well, no, but we can come
Oh,
back to
okay.
that.
All right. All right. All right.
So
Well,
the Power Back process is intended to help you get out of your head and to make decisions that are in alignment with you so that you can move forward, right? Because more often than not, the thing that stops people from moving forward is the shit that plays on repeat in your head.
amen. Yes, it does.
So if we don't know how to interrupt that process, if we don't know how to shift what's going on in there, you'll continue to perpetuate in the same cycle. So the acronym is AURA, AURA, which is awareness, unpack it, reframe it, aligned action. So I'll go through those and explain a little bit further. So first, awareness. You've got to start noticing yourself. We run on autopilot 24/7. If you don't start noticing, how am I feeling right now? Where am I feeling this in my body? What am I saying to myself? What do I actually really want in this situation, right? We have to start tapping back in. So you've got to build personal self-awareness. When you do that, you kind of open things up to say, okay, now I can evaluate things a little bit differently. Now I've removed myself, maybe even from a little bit of the emotion that's attached to it. And now I can look at it from a non-subjective view, which allows you to go to you, which is unpack it. What's going on? Where did this come from? Did something trigger you? Is this a past experience? Are you feeling some kind of way about it? If we really just unpack it, that allows us to soften the bigness of things so that you can really get into the moment and the decision and what's really happening. Then you can go on to R, which is to reframe it. What's really true? Because the mind wants to tell you 7,000 things. What is really true in this moment? So in my instance with selling the building, when I'm like back and forth and this and that, I'm walking through this. I use this process like literally every single day, sometimes multiple times a day. And when I get to the reframe, what does it really mean if I sell this building? Does it matter if somebody thinks that I'm like irresponsible because I created a plan and now I'm selling it? No, the reality is this gives me back and gives my family back the freedom that we're looking for right now. This gives us back the capacity to do the things that we really want to do. So as you go through this process, you can already even see and feel how I'm regrounding back into myself and my own truth. Because then when you do that, then you can move into the last, which is aligned action. Now I'm making a conscious decision. Now I'm making a conscious movement. Now I can move forward in the way that I really want to, instead of the way that my mind wanted to tailspin me on and take me on some whack ass journey that who knows what was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So the more that you do this, it becomes just part of the process of life, right? I love it because you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to tell anyone. I mean, you could be standing in a crowd and do this on your own. You can be journaling this in the morning. You can be
Yeah.
using this as someone's asking you to make a decision, right? Like this gets to be a tool that helps you shift away from the subconscious patterns, beliefs, the habits, the cycles, and allows you to
Mhm.
move into actually moving forward the way that you really want to.
I I love all of that, and you make it sound so easy. You make it
I mean, easier said than done when you're
Yeah,
not in the thick of it. But what's the alternative?
right,
Keep
just sitting
doing,
in your own shit and doing
yeah,
nothing.
yeah. And how's that working out for you?
Exactly, no, you really do, and I have been the queen of getting in my own way. I looked back just recently, I was having a conversation about my own business, and I was like, I looked back, and sometimes I kick myself because I know when I started this, and it's like I should be, right,
Mm-hmm.
further ahead than I am. And but then I'm like, you know what? I remember those early years. I let myself stop moving forward because of fear of what one or two people may have said if I took that step forward, right? Their
Yeah.
opinions. And looking back and like, did it even matter? Like, why did I let that stop me? Because those people really aren't part of my life anymore. And why did I allow them to have that much control in my life? So, if I understand the process between unpacking and repacking, right? Repackaging, I get stuck right there.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
That's not uncommon, right? And it's not a perfect process. And you're not always going to go the whole way through it. But I also truly believe that there's an opportunity to learn in every moment. So something is still kind of sticking around. Either there's a lesson still to be learned or information that you're there to gather,
yeah.
or it's the moment where you have to really face yourself and say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I have to decide differently. You know, those people's opinions, where are they now? Who knows?
I have no
But
idea.
we put an incredible amount of weight on what
Yeah,
other people are going to say and think. And at the end of the day, those people, they're not living your life. They're not paying your bills. They're not sitting at home when you wanted to be on vacation because you couldn't afford it.
right.
They're not, sitting there while you're trying to figure out how to get out of a situation. They're not there when you're in the thick of things, right? So why are we giving
Yep.
them more power than we are giving ourselves? And that's
God, that's
really,
such a great point.
yeah, that's the thing that we really need to hone in on.
Yeah. And what I've learned is, and you can tell me if you found this to be true too. And I don't know if that you ever had the same roadblocks, but usually those people that I was so worried about, and I would stop myself because of those handful, like they really weren't even big supporters of me. It wasn't like they were the cheerleaders
Yeah.
in the background always cheering me on or sharing whatever it was, as simple as sharing something on social media, right? Or commenting or doing any of that. They really weren't all that supportive, yet they had so much power. I gave them so much power, right, over me.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
they're not the ones buying your programs, right? They're not buying your
No, they're
products.
they're not. They're not, and I allowed them to stop me from moving forward.
Well, and I think the important thing to note here is that if you can give someone else that much power, you can also give it to yourself. And so
Ooh,
I think sometimes that we get in this hopelessness, cycle of, well, I gave it away and everyone else already has it. Hold on, let me grab my picnic basket and walk my ass around and regather all of my power. And if I can give that to you, I can most certainly give that to myself. Or I could at least start to, right?
gosh, you're so right.
It's not about flipping over the kitchen table and changing everything overnight, unless, of course, that's your style, and then have at it. But it's really about reclaiming parts of yourself that you've unintentionally given away, piece by piece, area by area, until all of a sudden, like, you're shining different. You're glowing different. You're making decisions differently. You're showing up differently. You're making gutsy decisions. You're leaning into things. And all of a sudden you're like, I actually don't give two shits what you think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that doesn't come from a place of disrespect. It comes from a place of I respect myself so much that your thought or opinion cannot penetrate it. That's a powerful place to be.
That is an amazing place to be, because I've gotten there. Don't get me wrong. There are days where I still am like, ugh, like I just feel like I'm getting kicked in the teeth, right? But for the most part, I'm responsible now. Like now I'm in control. But that was really a long process to get there. And I didn't go through the, your aura of recognizing it. I just kind of drifted through, and it probably took me longer to get through than it should have. I wish I had learned of your process before, because I probably would have taken the time to sit and analyze and then recognize it and then make those decisions, right? But you really don't know. And I think what you said earlier is getting real with yourself. And that's really hard to do sometimes. I don't know if we always want to get real with ourselves, especially in the beginning when we lack that control.
Yeah.
What's your experience with working? Because you do coaching. Like, is that sometimes a roadblock with people that you're working with?
Yeah, especially if people are really new to kind of self-development or just kind of unpacking things. There often is a lot of resistance around facing yourself and the truth about who you are, what you actually want. More often than not, when I ask, sit across the table or across Zoom with someone, I'm like, what do you actually want? They're like, it's a blank stare. I have no idea. No one's ever asked me that before. I've never had time to sit and think about that. And so going inward usually means that something outward has to change. And that's more often than not why people resist going inward, because it means that they have to do something to change it outwardly. And more often than not, that involves somebody else.
Really?
So if I just sit here and I be quiet and I avoid all that stuff, then I won't rock the boat. I won't upset anybody. I won't let somebody down. I won't disappoint anyone.
You know what? I never thought about that.
Yep.
I've never thought about that. That's so interesting. And so when because you're an alignment coach, and so when you're working with people, you're seeing that as being an obstacle. It's somebody else, right? And so then what do you do? I am like mind blown right now.
I see her wheels turning. I love it.
The wheels are like going, I know, right? Like I am like, holy shit, like this makes so much sense. And I see it in myself, right? Which again, usually the cool thing about doing these podcasts is I learn from my guests, right? I'm always learning. And sometimes I have guests on. I don't plan on really learning anything personal, but then you get smacked in the face and you're like, wait a minute, right? And you just smacked me in the face. And I'm like, I feel that. Like, I feel what you just said. So then what do you do? Like, when you do realize that what's stopping you is another person, or, right, your thoughts of another person's reaction or the way that things are perceived, like, what do you do? How do you get it out of the way and just focus on you so that you align? Go ahead.
I mean, there's a couple of different ways to tackle it. And honestly, it's a little bit unique with each person because everyone has different tolerance levels, and some people want to run and some people need to walk, and either one is totally fine. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Everyone has their own timing. But I think one of the most important things and one of the common things that we tap into is relearning who you are, right? So we have to kind of set the other people off to the side just for a second. We'll come back around to that. But we have to first address you and getting to know yourself again. What lights you up? What makes you excited? What is consistently draining your energy and you're procrastinating on, and you're putting things off and you're like, oh, I just don't want to, right? Like getting to know your inner child again, right? Reconnecting with the
Yeah.
little girl that always lives inside of you. What did she love to do? What was it about her personality that was just bigger than life, right? Like get remembering you.
Yeah.
And when you
Ooh.
start to do that, some chills, right? Like
Right. Right.
that in its own, like I even just want to like like that starts to build something, a new
Yeah.
fire inside of you. And once you start to tap into those feelings, then you can start to make the outward changes in different ways, right? Again, we're not
Mm.
flipping over the table. These bigger shifts are in small micro decisions and actions over and over again. And with
Wow.
enough of that, we're building that inner confidence so that then when the bigger thing, or you've built up to it, when it's time to make the bigger shift, then you're more prepared, right? You've built that fire back within you, and now you're ready to do that.
I love it. Wow. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking like, who am I? And I'm not turning this into a coaching session, right? But I'm real. I keep it real with everybody. But it's like for so many years, I didn't know who I was, right? Because you're a daughter and then a wife and then a mom and then like you become all these roles and I don't know if it's the same for men, but I feel like women especially like we carry more weight and want to make sure everybody's okay. That
Yeah.
I felt like I lost a little bit of my identity through that. And like since my kids are now in college and I moved away, like now I'm rediscovering it. But as you're talking, I'm like, you still have more digging to do, Deanna. Like there's like good start, way to go, right? But you got to keep digging because there's more down there.
Yeah, but how exciting, because all that
Yeah.
is doing is allowing you to get to know yourself better so that you can
Yeah.
be more of yourself. Imagine
Yeah.
if everyone in the world was just even 20% more of themselves every day. The vibration of
Oh
the
my
planet would
gosh.
change.
It would be amazing.
I mean,
I would believe it would be amazing because I think everybody is out to try to be. I mean, let's look at social media, right? Everybody's trying to pretend to be perfect, and then it's everybody's starting to look the same.
yeah.
And like,
Yeah,
it's like
I don't know why the universe chose me, or maybe I chose this path, and maybe it's a combination of the two, but I feel so completely compelled to bust all that shit.
oh
If you take a little scroll through my TikTok reels, or my TikTok videos, or my Facebook reels, you will see me in all forms and fashions. Usually at my makeup stand with like a towel on my head and no makeup. I some with makeup, some without makeup. Like people just want to connect with other human beings.
I agree.
We don't want this facade anymore. We don't want, am I doing it perfectly? No, I'm a human being. But I think that there's just this natural gravitation that people are like, you're a little bit like me. And I see you doing great things. And maybe that helps me believe that I can do great things too. Like that, whew, like that.
Right? Wow. I was like, oh.
That instantly raises the vibration. So more of that.
Yeah.
Always and forever.
Absolutely. Laura, I'm going to ask one question and then I want to find out about your name, right?
Okay.
But for our listeners, how can they work with you?
Yeah. I mean, we can conquer the world in a lot of different ways.
Right? There's so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways I love to support people. Of course, I do one-on-one containers. So if you're looking for some personalized support and mentorship, one of the most effective ways to make really, really incredible shifts in your life. I also have a group, a community called the Gutsy Collective, where I work with lots of different people. We have on-demand classes, live classes. One of my favorite things to teach is the mindfuckery workshop, which we take this process and we break it down together every day for 5 days. So that's a load of fun. And all of that you can find at lauraora.com.
I love it. I love it. Now your name. I'm dying to know, Laura Ora.
Yes.
Where did this come from?
Yes. So when I first started my branding agency, I was just a little tiny baby person. I think I was 21 or 22. And I joined a networking group because I didn't know anything about business. And every week we went around the table and stood up and, talked to each other. And at one point there was a gal that said, Laura, you know, there's something about you. I'm not sure what it is. There's this aura, this Laura aura. And I was like, interesting. And 22-year-old me was like, I don't know what that is, but we're going to hang on to that. So I just put it in my back pocket for like a decade.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, it kind of sat with me. And when I realized that I love to speak and to teach and to write, I realized that Laura Aura is all of me. So it's the reconnection of my younger self, my inner child, with my higher self, the one that guides me, with my present day self. And when all of me is embodied together, Laura Aura exudes this energy that impacts people in such a profound way to move forward in their own life. And it's where I feel most me. It is my aligned self because I am Laura Aura, because I am all of those parts of myself. So I just fully embodied it, and that's who I am.
Wow. Now I'm feeling a little less than. No, I'm kidding.
No, absolutely not.
I'm joking. I'm teasing. That is such a cool story. Does that person who said it know that you're using it now, a decade later?
Yeah.
Oh, do they? Okay. I was like, do you still are you still in touch with that person?
Yeah. I told her the story. I said, you know, you said that, and there was just something about it that stuck with me. And I think that's the neat thing about ideas is we don't always have to act on something or force it into play. Because if something is truly for you, it will present itself in the time that it's supposed to.
I love that. What a great note to end this on. Laura Aura, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a great conversation and I guess a little bit of a therapy session for me, but thank you for coming on.
It's my absolute pleasure, my friend.
All right, everybody, we will catch you next week.